They're both.
Maybe a little bit of both. Yeah. But certainly a good piece of data to have when your number looks like that. That might be the biggest one in our fleet. So I don't think that's what you want to win at. Well, billable projects might be one you want to win at. That's okay. I'm not mad at that. So, but you can also run that same report for Windows 7. I wouldn't encourage that unless you want to cry, but I'm sure that a lot of folks still have some of that floating around out there too. So, you could go out here and pull all your Windows 7 flavors. And of course, my old outdated data has a lot of it, but you can go out and pull those as well. If you're looking for a certain make or model of a product, so if you wanted to find all your TZ110 Sonic walls, you could go out and find all of those, because I'm pretty sure they finally end of life that poor sucker. I can see my 300 Windows 7 machines in my outdated data here. So you guys can use this if you find a problem at one customer, you can always use this to go say, oh shit, does this exist across my entire client base, or does it just exist in this one client?
So from this view,
sorry, the one I was just on.
Yeah, there's probably no way to start making recommendations in mass, is there?
Right here. You have to make one per customer, but you could make one per customer right from here.
Can select the customer and do.
Yeah, well, I mean, so like if I wanted to say I want all the Dunder Mifflin boxes, right? I could sort by just enough to get me that customer, choose them all, and create a recommendation.
Wasn't seeing it in the list here.
Oh, it's just updates from here.
Yeah.
Create recommendation should exist on that list. That is absolutely a thing that should be there. So okay. I'm going to get that added.
Cool. And then I can assign it to somebody else to go through them all and do it.
Yep. So let me rifle this off as an update or as a request real fast, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, no, I think Marnie maybe brought this topic up last week and got us looking at it, and similar thing for like some rocky end of life stuff we were starting to look at and do the same thing.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we don't think we talk about enough. So we're trying to get ourselves to bring it up every time we see an opportunity to remind people that it's there to get you to use it, because it's a pretty powerful tool that doesn't fall into the regular conversation of get one customer to a QBR and go get the thing done, right? So it's just one of those things that's tucked away, and we're, as a company, trying to do a better job of making sure you guys know it's there.
Yeah, we get so stuck thinking about customer by customer and forget about the mass across all customer.
Yep.
Is there a column? Is there a column chooser on this page? I don't see one.
There is not.
Okay.
I think there's a feature request for the column chooser already.
Well, I'm creating one now if there isn't already.
There you go. Do it. They like to hear from you. They don't like me anyway, so they're tired of me. I swear when I talk to them, they hear Charlie Brown's teacher go wah 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 wah. So, but this is a good report. It's pretty useful if you can get in here and mangle it around and make it do some stuff. So make sure that you guys take a look at that one. It's pretty valuable. We're not going to talk too much about travel today. We usually start these meetings and kind of go over where you're going to find us, but you're going to find us slacking off for the next solid month. The next thing that we're doing is 7-figure MSP out in Phoenix. So not a lot of travel, not a lot of exciting going on. Thank goodness, because we needed it. But today, what I want to talk to you guys about is sales process. And I don't know how many of you guys have followed my my conversations around sales process on LinkedIn. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I've been kind of harping on this one for a couple of weeks. But I want to talk through sales process with you guys today. How many folks on the call have a documented, like you actually wrote it down, sales process?
We are headed in the direction of the machine.
Awesome. I like the machine.
Yeah, but it's been something, that topic is one of those things we struggle with for a long time.
So I'm going to go over all the ways I screwed it up at my MSP and save you guys some pain. And then we'll talk about the result that worked when we finally whittled it down. And this is the result of hiring a Sandler sales coach and working with them for 2 years, on top of me having spent my life in sales. But, you know, when you spend your life in it, you get blind to your own head trash, and you don't do a good job of creating the things that really, if you were consulting somebody else and talking them through it, you'd actually do a better job. Because, you know, in my unique little snowflake environment, we all think we're different. But so first I want to talk about the why, though. Scott, you obviously understand the ability to make it repeatable. For those of you who just have one person doing it, even if you're the only one, I'm going to say you can't give it away until you've documented it, right? And there shouldn't be anything in your business that you're the only person qualified to do. If you follow my methodology, sales is absolutely 100% something that even as a small MSP, an account manager can do if the owner can't. If you do sales right in the MSP space, it's not pushy. It doesn't, I always tell everybody, if it sounds slimy coming out of your mouth, don't say it, because you're doing it wrong. A consultative sale is really, really easy. It's the same conversation we have at a quarterly business review. It's just an uneducated quarterly business review, right? With the QBR, we have inventories, we have ticket history. We know everything about the customer, everything about their environment. We know who has MFA and who doesn't. We know where the Windows 7 bodies are buried. When we're walking in to meet with a new prospect, we'll probably do some discovery. That'll probably be a step in our process, but it's a less educated, we know less about it, but we should be able to figure out enough pretty quickly to just educate like we do at a quarterly business review and explain to the customer why their life would be better today or better tomorrow than it is today if they came to work with us. And it's not much different than sitting in front of that client in a quarterly business review and saying, your life will be better tomorrow if you buy this project than it is today before you bought this project. Instead, the project we're selling is called onboarding, and there's an MRR associated with it. So if you have account managers and not a dedicated sales guy, think about how they could help you in the sales process. And as the CEO, you maybe you just bring them with you to your sales calls for the first couple of them, right? Come on along. What that sales call sounds like is, well, you know what, if you decide to sign up with us, Scott here sitting next to me, you'll get assigned to somebody like him. And you'll have regular meetings kind of like this, where we talk about the risk, we talk about the exposure in your environment, we'll talk about budgets, we'll talk about, you know, forecasting and strategic roadmaps. And Scott will lead those kind of calls with you on a regular cadence, quarterly, semi-annually, annually, whatever you're pitching that customer. But we have to make it repeatable. The other big problem with MSP sales is, Scott's going to have a really great answer, but for the smaller guys in the room, how many sales calls do you go on a month? 1, 2, sometimes not even 1. Anybody here do less than 1 a month, new sales calls? I hear it all the time. If you can't make a repeatable process, and it's really hard to make something repeatable if you don't document it, that you only do 5, 6, 10 times a year, right? If you're not going on a call a week, it's not habit forming. You're not getting better every time you do it. You're still trying to dust it off and remember how you did it. It's like going back and finding that PowerShell script you wrote a year and a half ago and trying to figure out what you did with it. So documenting your sales process makes it repeatable. It makes it something you can go back to after every individual call. Part of the reason that we document it is so that after a call, good, bad, or indifferent, we want to be able to go back and actually review it. And that's where, repeatable is the start of this, but being able to review it is super important. And this is one of the things that my sales coach beat into me, which was, you've spent your whole life doing sales. So you go out and you do them. And when you trip up, you feel it in the moment and God, I just screwed up. I should never have said that. Your sales guys don't. Your team doesn't. They don't have 25 years experience in sales. So they need to walk out of the room and they need to have somebody sit down with them and go, how did that call go? What landed really, really well with that customer? What did you say in that call that you'd like to never say again in front of a customer? Right. And sometimes the stop doing list is more important than the start doing list. You've heard me say that before. It's a Jim Collins ism, but a very good one. So making it reviewable gives us the ability to walk out of the call and say, this is the thing that made that customer buy. I should try that again next time, right? And we can refine that process just a little bit. That's that whole iterative piece. So the reasons we documented are many, but it's the difference between making it repeatable, making it, and I should have put another one of these on here that is make it delegatable, because that's really the ultimate. Is that even a word? If that's a word, I'm making it up as a word if it's not, because that really is kind of the magic of a sales process. Right now, I can take a thing that we do regularly, we build the process around it, we make it repeatable, we make it improvable over time because we've documented it and we can go back to the docs. And now I can delegate it and give it to somebody else. And the real beauty of delegating one that you already have documented is that next guy is going to sound more like you, more like your company. He's going to come at it with the Hungerford mentality or with the CIT mentality. He's going to sound like that guy when he goes in the building because he's been trained, because we had something to train him on. Too often an MSP, and I see this on Facebook and Reddit and all these places, an MSP's out there going, I've got to hire somebody to take over sales for me because I suck at it. And the first question is, do you have a quota? Do you have a process? Do you have a budget? Do you have marketing? Do you have leads to feed this person? Well, no, they're going to have to come in and build all that. If I bring somebody in off the street and send them out to do sales, they're going to go sell to people a product and service that they don't understand from a company that they don't know how they talk and how they sound. And they're going to be out there selling Pepsi, working for Coke. And that is not the experience you want folks to have. So to that end, I want to just talk through kind of what I built at my MSP and what you guys, some failures that you guys could improve on. I tried to move an account manager into a sales role. I did move an account manager into a sales role. And by doing so, I overcomplicated the sales the sales stages in the beginning. And if you recognize that on the left-hand side, that is the ConnectWise sales funnel. Okay, you can customize the sales funnel in ConnectWise. I'm pretty sure you can in Autotask and all the other tools that have one. If you're using the sales funnel in one of those tools, customize it and make it your own. If you're using HubSpot or whatever your other ones are, break out the sales process. 17 steps or whatever I have there is way too freaking many. Okay. I was trying to micromanage somebody, and I was trying to micromanage him because number one, I hadn't given him enough process the first go around. And number two, I didn't have enough faith in his ability to land a deal. So what we did was dropped big chunks of this, rolled it up into a much shorter sales process, and turned this into the ability for us to give them a little bit of freedom, but also fill in with process the things I was trying to control with, hey, what happened on this exact next conversation with the customer? Did you achieve, did you actually do the debrief portion? Well, look, all that's going to happen right here in the stakeholder interview, et cetera. So the new process that I use, and this is really the only thing that I think that you guys should steal off of this slide. Don't be proud if you don't have a good process. Steal this one. It won't work for you out of the box, but steal it anyway, because this gives you something to start breaking. Okay. Don't steal the one on the left-hand side of the page. It was broken when you found it. But what I do in my sales process, and I'd love to hear you guys push back on me and tell me that you've got other ideas, better in different ways, other things, like it'll help the group. I have no ego in this because I firmly believe that everyone's process should be a little different because each of you runs a different company. But my sales process that really, really worked was 5 steps. Okay. Somehow we get a lead in the funnel. It shows up. They call us on the phone. They walk in the front door. They get referred to us by my cousin's uncle's buddy. And I have a lead in front of me. The first thing I'm going to do is kind of have a mini qualification. Do you own some computers? Right. There's a good start. How many? What does the network look like? We're just going to have a quick conversation. I always ask, why did you come to me, and why are you leaving your old guy? Right. If they're leaving their old guy because they had a big fight with him, I might want to dig a little deeper there. I might want to ask a few more questions, ask why they left the guy before that. I don't, we had a rule. We had a no assholes rule at my MSP. We had one right at the top. We didn't have room for another one. So, our customers, we would sit down and say, look, maybe we're just not the right fit for you. And you can say that early. One of my goals is always get my no at the top of the funnel. So this right fit call is as much me saying to that prospect, do I want to work with you, as saying, do you have the kind of problems I can solve for? And that's the other thing I'm talking about here. is, what is it that made you call me today? Is there a system down? Is there something broken? Is it just that your old guy never calls you to send you Christmas cards or doesn't answer fast enough when something's broke? What is it? And I always try and lay out budget all the way up here. And that's going to break some people's brain. But when that guy tells me I have 15 machines, guess what? I can do the math. I know what it costs me to support 15 machines already. You guys know, that customer is going to spend $2 to $3 grand a month with me, $3 to $4 grand a month with me, whatever your number is. And I'm going to leave a nice big wide gap. And I'm going to say between here and here. And I'm going to give them an astronomical number that I know I'm never going to charge them. And I'm going to give them a number just the bare minimum of what I think I might be able to get away with. That way, when I come back later, I can go, guess what? I got good news. It's not the big number out there, right? Congratulations, you're already winning. But my goal with that right fit call is just to make sure that they have enough interest in carrying on. I'm going to explain to them what my sales process looks like. Mr. Customer, you're in step one of what is or Mr. Prospect, you're in step one of what is typically about a 5-step process. What's going to happen is I'm going to come out to your office and meet all your people. I'm going to talk to everybody who has a serious involvement in the technology that runs your business. So I want to meet the people in HR. I want to meet the people in finance. I want to meet the people in sales. I want to talk to each of them about what's broke, because the only way I can prescribe the fix is to kind of give you a physical. So I'm going to come out and talk to those folks. Now, I'm not the engineer. I'm not the smart guy. So the next day I'll send an engineer out. He'll scan the network. He'll poke around in the closet. He'll stand on his head and look underneath all the desks. He'll do all that kind of stuff. We'll both have our different sets of data collected, and we'll come back and we'll talk about those. And once I've talked about those, I'll probably reach out to you just for a phone call to confirm that what he saw is the same as what I saw and that we're still on track for everything. If that sounds good to you, once we've had that phone call, we'll come out and we'll deliver to you that final presentation, and you'll get to decide, yeah, I like these guys, I want to work with them, or, these guys are ridiculous, I don't want anything to do with them, please get out of my office. And you can tell me that right there at that point. And that's it, Mr. Prospect. If you're interested in that, the next step would be for us to start scheduling some of these appointments. Do you want to schedule all 4 of the next ones today, or do you want to just schedule them one at a time as we go, right? And that's it. We're in the sales funnel. We've told them what we're going to do. We've set expectations. I'm huge on defined next steps. And that's why this lives over here, right? At every stage of the process, my goal is to get them to the next step. So, we've got some objectives and defined next steps. My stakeholder interview is half of a risk assessment. Okay. I break these next 2 steps down, and it's the 3 S's of sales, of technology sales. And it's say, see, scan. What can I say? What can the customer say to me that explains to me how their technology is run, what's broken, what works, what doesn't work? The second 2, really the see and the scan, are on the data collection call, where my tech's going out. He's looking in the server room. He's pulling out the little tab on the Dell server and taking a picture of the serial number so he can go look it up on the internet and determine how old it is. Right? He's looking for the blue Netgear switch that has a fan that's screaming its head off. That we know he's going to want to replace, and those kind of things. So we're looking for the obvious things that just jump out at us, and then we're going to run some sort of a scanning tool to poke around the network and find the things that we can't find just talking to a human and looking around the server. How do you answer during the right fit call? If you ask why they called, they rattle off four projects that they want done immediately. My answer was real simple for this. We're going to sit down with you and have a consultation. Like, I'm happy to talk about your projects, but we only work with customers who have a full managed service agreement with us. So if you're going to bring me on as a consultant and we're going to do real long-term work for you, we'll consider these projects, but we have to go through this process first to make sure that you're the kind of organization that's a right fit for our company, because we really do we don't do break fix work, we don't do project work, and it's just not the way that we're built. But I'm going to tell them, like, hey, I can't staff my company for feast or famine work like projects and still deliver the kind of results that I want for my managed customers who are on a contract. And so that's my my point in it. If they are absolutely dead in the water and down, we had a 1-page like liability waiver limiter, whatever, that we sent out that came from our attorneys. We would go out and do 1 break fix call to get the internet back up, to get the line of business application running, to enable them to ring the cash register. And after that, it was hands off until we went through the whole process. So that was my process, right, wrong, or otherwise. If anybody else has input on that, I'd love to hear it, because again, I don't think I'm right about all this. Does anybody take these kind of calls or project only work, and how do you handle it?
We do project work aside from just managed services, and it's always the 2 to 4 week buffer. right? At any moment in time, we are 2 to 4 weeks out from starting any new project,
Yeah.
right? Clicking the first mouse, turning the first knob. So if you wait 30 days to sign our proposal and get our paperwork done, that means we're 60 days away from starting your project. And so that's usually how we would navigate that.
Yeah, and that's awesome because that is the urgency that always helps in the sales process, right? I'm terrible at setting urgency in my sales process. It's something I'm not good at Lifecycle Insights or at the MSP. At Lifecycle Insights, my sales pitch kind of wraps up with, "We're really busy, and I'm probably never going to call you again. So if you want to work with us, go to the website and click on the link and sign up for a trial." And it's kind of true because we don't have a cold caller, and we probably have 1,000 leads out there that we have never followed up on. And if we had a pushy sales guy, we probably would sell some more stuff, but it's just doesn't fit my personality well. In the MSP side, I managed to get around that with a really strict process. And I'll talk to you guys about how I kind of close so that I never have to go chase people. And I probably should adopt some of that better to Lifecycle Insights. So the second and third steps, they're split up in my mind for a reason. I was talking about this on a Ninja webinar with Tom Watson, and he said I did all that in one step because I wanted to eliminate the extra visit and get the customer to close faster. You could talk me into that. Wouldn't hurt my feelings, right? It doesn't take a very smart guy to plug in a USB drive and run a network scanner. No problem with that. I separated it because a guy in my peer group one day said, "Put on a sports coat and your customers will stop asking you to crawl under the desk and start looking at you more as a strategic advisor." And that was the mentality with which I separated it. And I thought it was worth it to establish myself as the professional and not the wrench turner in my customer's mind early. But that's the reason it's separated.
It's interesting because I feel like these meetings are so important, right? It's like your first impression.
Yep.
We've been approaching it where it's like, hey, we want our account manager, we want our VCIO, and we want our project manager all meeting with the client. And then you could potentially get all that done in one meeting if you have multiple people there.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, we're going to sit here and talk strategy, and we're going to send the nerd off to do nerd things, right? We'll send the smart guy to do the smart guy stuff, and we'll sit here and eat donuts and drink coffee. That's perfect. I don't care that these are the same time or different times. I love the concept of separation of duties so that they're not, expecting you to fix what was broke when you show up there.
The machine does that too. It involves the PM right away in the process, which is a little different than how we've been doing things. And so we found that to be an interesting adjustment.
Yeah.
With respect to who you're involving and when.
Yep. And it adds value in your customer's mind or in your prospect's mind that this isn't just a one-man show, or I'm not just getting they value me. I'll never forget at my MSP, we were shopping for accountants, and we went to see 3 different accountants, and one of them we met with the accountant, and one of them we met with the accountant, the owner, 3 other people. Like, they had a whole room full of people. And I walked out and I went, do they know how little we are? Like, it kind of broke my mind a little bit. And it was definitely a different feeling walking out of that meeting than the one before it. And we actually went with that company, and they sold us because they made us feel important. And they did a shitty job, but they sold us because they made us feel important. They were terrible. We fired them a couple years later after they cost me about $30,000 in taxes I never should have had to pay. But they sold me because they made me feel important. I think that's important to hear. So to Scott's point, getting those folks involved early, and I'll throw that up too, so we can see it. I am not super familiar with this process, so I'm gonna go check this one here out.
We were having too many issues where things would get handed off to the project manager, and we realized that we wished we would have had him involved in meetings ahead of time because there's lost information, right, that they could have had,
Yep. And the smaller you are, the less that's a concern, because odds are pretty good that the owner is involved in the project at an early stage. The bigger you get, the more you start putting hats on unique individual heads instead of wearing them all yourself, the more you have to think about these kind of things, right? And to be honest, I now that you say that, like I'm thinking, shit, if I had brought my project manager to a couple things, I can actually remember some problems I might have been able to avoid. So that's a great point. So once I've done these 2 calls, right, I've done my SACE scan, I've collected all my data, I understand what's happening. I'm sitting down with my team and we're having this conversation. We're basically writing the proposal. But basically what I want to know is that the things they complained to me about, the things that they said, hey, doc, it hurts right here, are backed up by the data, by what we collected, right? Typically, you can tie a few of those together. The reason I care about that is because customers buy on emotion. Doesn't matter if my scanner found 47 other things they didn't know about. Makes no difference. Those things are not going to sell that customer unless they're absolutely glaring, like, hey, your old MSP is still logged in. You know, there's not much that I can sell them unless there's an emotion attached to it. So my confirmation call internally, really what we're doing is we're finding the technological things we know we can fix, the deficiencies, and we're attaching them to a story they told us, so that when I call them back on this confirmation call, I'm going to say, hey, Mr. Prospect, remember when you told me that you have to work late every Tuesday night to get payroll done because there's a slow system, or you don't have remote access, and you like to leave at 3 o'clock to go to your kid's baseball game, and then you have to come back afterwards because you don't have remote access. Well, you don't have remote access because you got a crap firewall, or you're plugged straight into the cable modem. We can fix that. No worries, but I'm reminding him of the pain that he told me about. That was the reason that he called me. And in this confirmation call, we're kind of just reaffirming everything else that we knew. Something I left out in that stakeholder interview, I'm also asking the question, whose advice, whose opinions are you going to value when you make this decision? Right. And I want them to say, well, just my leadership team. But if they say, I need my board of directors approval, ding, 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 red lights going off. Right. Or, Joe in engineering, he's super technical and I really value his insight, and I ask him about all this kind of stuff. In fact, he gives me a little bit of guidance, and it's kind of why things are set up the way they are today. Guess what? Joe in engineering is going to be in this call. If there's a board member who comes with technology background, they're going to be on my proposal presentation. They're going to be there in that room. So I'm starting to build that and identify. So you look here, and our goals here, our objectives are really in the stakeholder interview. I'm looking for pain, risk, budget process, and decision-making process, right? I'm just reaffirming all of those as I go down. But that decision-making process, I want to identify it way up there. In my confirmation call, I'm going to remind them of that. So we're going to schedule this next proposal presentation. I'll be out tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Joe's going to be available for that, right? That board member, can he make it in tomorrow? Because I really would hate to put you in the uncomfortable spot of having to repeat a bunch of technical jargon that I'm going to say to you back to someone else who is non-technical. I know that puts you in a really bad spot, right? And I'm not going to say anything technical when I come back, but I'm going to make them think I'm going to talk about really complicated, scary computer stuff, so that they make sure that they bring all the right people into the room and they don't have to be the one to repeat it. This especially works well if you're getting stuck with a gatekeeper and you're trying to get around a gatekeeper, right? The last thing I would want to do to you, Mr. Secretary, Mrs. Secretary, is make you have to go back and explain something that is really complicated and just not in your field of expertise. You sure you don't want to put me in front of those board members and let me take the slings and arrows for you? And I've found that works really, really well. I've presented to town councils because town managers didn't want to repeat nerd words to a town council. So
one of the things that's interesting too is who's responsible for measuring and making risk decisions for the company, right?
Yep.
And are they at the meeting? And if they're not, hey, Mr. Customer, we're going to be talking about decisions around risk for your business. Who in your business takes ownership over these decisions? We're going to want to make sure they're in the meeting, right?
And you want finance there too. We're going to be talking about the spend for all of this, what all this is going to cost. And there's going to have to be some cost justification. So, if there's someone other than you, Mr. Prospect, who deals with this kind of stuff, let's bring that person into the room. So we're setting all that up in the confirmation call, but the confirmation call is really just to remind the customer, remind them of what we found. Hey, I found some stuff that matches what we talked about. Remember that thing you said that hurts. Remember that other thing you said that hurts. Remember, get them a little emotional, get them to bring the right people to the table. Remind them of their budget. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm still working up the final numbers, but I got good news. You told me if we were between 3 and 4 grand, we could probably do business together. I'm pretty confident we'll be able to get in that range we talked about, right? Okay, now they're not petrified of this meeting. They're going into it feeling like he could come in on the budget he told me. I might actually have to make a decision here. And then I go make my proposal presentation. The proposal presentation is very similar to the confirmation call, except it's more affirmative, right? We found this, we can solve for it. We found this, we can solve for it. Here's the bigger conversation. And as we start to wrap that up and show them the proposal, they're going to see a number, and I'm going to deliver it to them like this. I got great news. We're well below that $4,000 number I gave you. In fact, we're just a little over that $3,000 number. We're $3,300 a month. This is right in that wheelhouse of budget that we talked about. Now, earlier on, you told me if I could solve for the problems that we were uncovering within that budget, we could probably do business together. Seems like we've covered all of those things today. Is there anything that we left out that was really a pain point? Right? We're fishing for them to say, no, you've covered everything. And when they tell me that we have, then my question is simple. Is this a decision that you want to make right now? Or should I stand out in the hallway while you talk about me? Right. And you find your own way to say that. You don't have to be a snarky prick when you say it like I do. It's fine. But everybody has their own way. I sat in front of a school board and asked that question. And I watched it. I'm sitting in the middle of the table and there's people around on all the wings of the table. And I watched them lean around and look around me at each other and a couple of little head nods, and they signed the paperwork right there at the table. And we walked out, and my account manager, the one who I was converting into a sales guy, went, "What kind of voodoo bullshit was that?" It's like, what? Well, I said, what? I honestly didn't know what he was talking about. And he says, "How did you come up with the stones to ask those folks if they wanted you to stand in the hallway and wait?" I said, "What was the worst thing that was going to happen? They were going to say, yes, go stand in the hallway." Actually, the worst thing they were going to say to me was, "I'm not prepared to make that decision today." And my answer was going to be a very simple one. I totally get it. This is a big expense. I would hate to have to call you 17 times to follow up, and you'd probably hate it even more than I would. So how about we just put some time on the calendar, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever day works best for you, and we'll just schedule a follow-up call. You can give me my yes or no then, and I won't have to hound you. You'll like me more that way. And we're done, right? And it really is that simple. You'll find things that work. You'll find things that don't work. You'll find things that work for me that don't work for you. You'll find a better way to do it. If you have it documented, you can go back to this document. You can scribble something out. You can add a note. You can tweak it. You can change it. You can make it your own. Each of these steps probably deserves a page full of notes, a page full of process, a page full of, your own internal documentation. But I think it's a pretty good, really high level, rough draft of what a sales process ought to look like in an MSP. And you guys have already picked it apart a little bit, and I love it. Like, if you got 2-3 people, bring them all to the stakeholder interview and do your data collection right there. I'm interested to hear if you guys have other ideas, other things that you've had really good success with.
I'm curious what people are seeing. It feels like the historical scan the network, get a lot of technical data. We're moving away from more, and I'm wondering if others are doing the same. Like, how much stuff are we going to find in most of these environments that's going to be a showstopper mindset?
I don't think it's so much about that. I've heard this a couple times, and I don't think it's about that. I think it's about being able to say, I found the technical problem that backs up the emotional problem that you have. Yeah. Because otherwise, the only thing we have is we're better, faster, cheaper, smarter than the other guy, right? Being able to sit down and say, we found the technical reason that you experience the thing that you feel. And not only that, I've seen it before. We know exactly how to fix it. I think there's some power in that statement. And if you can get that far without having to deploy scanners and do all that stuff, great. You don't need them. I found it to be a very comforting tool and a very powerful tool to be able to say, you're not crazy. You didn't make it up. I see why you feel that way, and I can fix it.
Well, and to Matt's point, though, if you think about it, we're all moving to the cloud. So we kind of care less about the local environment than we did in the past, because all the resources are out in the cloud now, right? So we can figure a lot of those things out without having to do technical scans, as much.
Yep.
I would say that it's probably not a good idea to show the client the rapid fire tools report that you created, because that's just gonna, they're just gonna glaze over at that thing.
No FUD, no thud. If the report makes a thud sound when you drop it on the desk, throw it away. It's not for your customer. It was for the engineer, right? Totally agree with that. But I would also think about, what are the things that you can do to make sure from a scanning perspective, now, how can I look at their 365 from the outside looking in and make sure that it's safe and secure, right? Maybe the change isn't that we don't scan anything. Maybe it's what we look at when we scan. One of the questions I would ask in my stakeholder interview is, has anybody here, has your organization been a victim of cybercrime? Have you experienced malware? Have you had a mailbox that was breached? Have you been through any of that? And if they say, oh yeah, somebody had their mailbox breached and a bunch of spam went out, well, then we go scan their 365 or look at their secure score and find their secure score is a 12. It's real easy for us to say, well, that the reason for it is right here, and your old IT guy probably should have addressed that. Did you guys have conversations around this? Oh no, we never talked about that. Well, I can see why you've got the problems that you have, and I know exactly what it takes to fix them.
We're doing a campaign now where we've added an insurance contact to our key, contacts that we track.
Yep.
And we want to find out when their renewal date is on their cybersecurity insurance, or if they don't have it, then like, hey, let's get some.
Yep.
And then that's a yearly date where we want to be reminded 2 months before, right? Get a hold of that questionnaire that they're going to need to fill out and identify additional opportunities that you can make use of.
And things that gaps you can plug before they have to check the no box on the questionnaire. Yeah. I think everybody here should have the insurance contract as a contract in lifecycle insights. List that on your budget in your contracts, and that'll give you the date and set a reminder 30, 60, 90 days ahead, however many days you think it's going to take, depending on maybe how complex that insurance carrier is or how complex that client is, because we're seeing everything from 25 question insurance forms to 150. So, and they're only going to get worse until insurance companies get smarter and figure out which questions actually matter. Right now, they're just asking 1 million questions so that they can collect the data and use that to fill out actuary tables, so that 2 years from now, they know all the clients who checked this box didn't get breached and all the clients who checked this box did. Right. This is a mass data collection effort right now. So they're asking all kinds of random crap that doesn't really mean anything. They don't even know what they're asking yet. But as they figure it out, they'll get dialed in, and more of the questions will matter. So that's really what I wanted to talk through today. I'm glad that you guys had some differing opinions on this. For anybody who doesn't have anything, grab this, steal it, go start from zero. Well, don't start from zero, start from here and tweak on it and wear on it a little bit. But I would just encourage you guys, like everything else, I like to make the comparison of a sales process to imaging a workstation. If you ever did a whole lot of MDT or any of your imaging solutions with your technology, the first time you image a workstation, it's like, it was a success if we didn't get a blue screen, right? Sales, the first go around is a success if we don't get thrown out of the office on our ass, right? But the third time you image the machine, you want Office installed. The fifth time you want your RMM agent installed and your, a whole bunch of your other line of business software installed. The 10th time you want it network domain joined and renamed and a whole bunch of other stuff to happen. So, this is an iterative process where it should get better every time we do it. And it's not always easy, and that's okay. But it's just one of those things that if we never work on it, if we never sit down and pay attention to it, it doesn't get any better, because as MSPs, we don't typically create a ton of leads, which means we don't typically get a ton of at-bats. And when we don't get a ton of at-bats, we don't do well, right? So we've got to make the best of each one of them. I can tell you to this day, I drive past a building on my way to my mother's house. She lives an hour away. I drive right past a building that I lost a sale in. And I can tell you, every time I drive by, I just hang my head a little bit, even if I don't do it visually. Mentally, I hang my head just a little bit and go, if I hadn't mailed them that freaking quote, that would have been my customer. Right. And I know it. I was busy. It was back to school. I had 5 schools that I worked at that point. It was August or September. We were just slammed. And I went, oh, this one's in the bag. I'll just, they asked for the quote. I'll just forward it over. And I sent the whole proposal over, and guess what? I never heard from them again. And some knucklehead, and they never answered any of my calls. I got stuck in chase mode because I didn't go, hey, you want to answer you want to give me a yes now, or should I stand in the hallway? Right. Because I didn't ask that question. I got stuck in chase mode. So it doesn't matter how good you are, if you're a professional or not, like, you'll lose a deal. If you do, go back and look at your process and see where you screwed up. And it got to a point where if it was, we were good enough at sales at my MSP, and my other guys who were doing them too, were good enough at it that if we really wanted the client, we probably got the client towards the end. And if we didn't, every time we went back and tore it apart, it was because we screwed up. And that doesn't say that we're sales experts. What it says is the rest of the guys selling MSP services are pretty freaking bad. And if you can be just a little better than the next guy, you have a ridiculously good chance of closing business. So give some thought to that. I did drag the screenshot into the chat so that you guys can download that. I posted a bunch of videos on my LinkedIn. So if you don't follow me on LinkedIn, go back and look at my posts over the last couple of weeks. I talk through each of these stages again. Well, of course, we'll send out this recording too. There's probably nothing in those that's not in this recording. But I just wanted to talk through it with you guys. And if you don't want to talk about it on this group call because you feel like you're so far behind, you're embarrassed to talk about it, ping me if you want to just have an off-the-cuff conversation and talk through your sales process too. I'm happy to do it. I don't think I'm by any stretch an expert, but I've put some time into it. I've got it fairly well dialed in. You can see where we started and where it ended, and it's much improved. I can tell you the closing percentage is at least 25% better on the right side of the screen than it was on the left side of the screen when we tried to micromanage it. So that's it. That's today. We are not having this call for the next 2 weeks. So you guys get a Christmas present from us, a break from our voices, hopefully some time to spend with your families and resting and relaxing. Let's hope that there's no Christmas surprises this year. And with that, unless anybody's got anything, we'll cut you guys loose, but we'll hang out here if anybody's got a chat or wants to talk about anything. We did release Hoodoo this week. I didn't even mention that. How did I forget that? Hoodoo is in very ultra soft beta trial, whatever, pre-release. So if you are a Hoodoo partner, they're working on some final steps to help you migrate to Hoodoo from whatever else you have. But if you're interested in Hoodoo, you can send in a support request and they'll give you some instruction on next steps, etc. Mark's coming off mute to correct me and tell me what I need to know. Look at that.
I just posted that YouTube link for Hoodoo. We do the voodoo of Hoodoo, so you do what you need to do. I'm out. I'm sorry.
All that. Yeah, you get a 2 week break from that now.
Yep, 2 weeks. 2 week break. Sorry,
you were quiet for an hour or for 45 minutes, and you came out here with that. I see how it is.
I am so sorry.
Yeah. So putting out new integrations at the end of the year, try to make sure some things get out there. Know that, and they'll talk about it on that webinar if you want to check it out. But if you are a Hoodoo partner, know that it is an it is the most complicated integration we have just because of how flexible their stuff is. So if you're not up for some trial and error and some uncovering of some bugs, give it a couple weeks, give it a couple months, let some other folks wear on it a little bit, because it is a very complicated integration, but we're getting it there.
Hey, Alex, with that integration and stuff, how much information are you bringing over? Can we map things, or how does that gonna all work?
There's a ton of mapping in Hoodoo because every configuration type is manual. So we have some pre-baked stuff where we know if Hoodoo's pulling and pushing information to ConnectWise, we know that data kind of looks like this, but it's like the IT glue flexible assets where you're going to have to manually map some stuff too.
Okay. Can we do the mapping, or you guys have to do the mapping?
The core mapping, I think our guys have to do. So like if you came to me and said we're Hoodoo and Acello, which we just don't talk to today,
Right.
we would have to build those mappings, the core ones. I'm pretty sure some of the secondary stuff you guys can do yourself.
Okay.
But if you have deep questions, if you're ready, if you want to see it, reach out to support, like Nick or Kurt or somebody to get on with you and help you get set up, or at least walk you through and see what's there. Sit on that webinar. I was at a booth at a trade show when that webinar happened, so I didn't even get to see all the detail or how much they talked about it. But we'll have more information for you on that one after the holidays. Once we've had a couple, we have some beta partners who have just been dying to get into that, like folks who didn't have another integration point to us. Those guys will be wearing on it for the next couple of weeks and getting up and running. So if you're not in a rush, give us 2 weeks and we'll have some better answers for you.
My big thing was Line Guard, and it's bringing over Line Guard. We just got set up Hoodoo last couple of weeks, but
Okay.
I'm impressed of what we can bring in, and hopefully we can bring that stuff over to Lifecycle too.
I
So
hear all good things, so I have high
Yeah,
hopes, but
it
I
looks
also
really
know
good.
I also know that its flexibility is its complexity.
Yeah, Exactly.
And so we're just trying to make sure we've accounted for everything. But like contracts, you can store your contracts in Hoodoo where your engineers can see them, and then you can
Right.
map them over to us as a contract. So you're going to get some functionality
There's-
like that you don't get just out of ConnectWise.
Yep.
I
Thanks.
think at the end of that that webinar, Marty talks about how just Hoodoo users are, that's the only thing we're focusing on. No attachments yet, not until this weekend, I believe. I think they're gonna start attaching other things for it starting this weekend. But yeah, we wanted to get the partners who have Hoodoo first, first and foremost, to actually be able to integrate. So just be on the lookout for stuff.
Yeah. We'll keep talking about it. We'll give you an update on it next time we meet, which will be
In the new year.
in the new year. That'll be on the 6th. Yeah. So when we meet on the 6th, we'll give you a Hoodoo update. Let everybody kind of figure out where we're at on that one. And maybe at some point we'll even have them on for one of our calls just to let them talk about what they do that's different, because they really are an interesting little product. But I don't want to turn these into sales pitches. So we'll figure out if there's a way that we can do that without it being a sales pitch. All right. Well, with that, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And if you need
I
us
actually
in
have
the
a
room-
question
Yeah.
for
Oh, go
Mark
ahead,
real
Brian.
quick. Mark,
Oh,
you mentioned
oh,
you
no.
use, no, the other Mark,
Oh, okay.
Mark G. Mark G.
Yep.
You mentioned you're using LionGuard with Lifecycle right now, and we currently don't have that bringing over devices yet because we're worried about duplicates. But I'm
Right.
curious, does that bring over mobile devices from Intune?
From Intune or LionGuard?
So LionGuard's integrated with Microsoft 365.
Oh,
and
I
then
see. I see what
Lifecycle's
you're saying.
integrated with LionGuard. And
So-
so do you get,
Yeah, with what Lifecycle has with LionGuard, it's pretty limited what they're bringing over right now.
okay,
So that's why I was looking at, Hoodoo to be the conduit. And it looks like, if that's why I was talking about mapping things. If we can map some stuff, there is some great information that it's bringing over from LionGuard. And, that's going to make my life a lot easier for, bringing in contracts to, from other vendors that, Lifecycle doesn't have. So, it would be it's going to be, I think it's going to be my hub of data is going to be right there. So I think that's what Lifecycle plans on doing anyway. So
Yeah.
it'll be a great integration. Then at that point, I don't really need a lot of integrations into anything else other than manage.
Yep.
So,
And you'll continue to get tickets and
Yep.
Contracts available from Manage. We should be able to get managed mobile devices. My question is, what I don't know and what I need to confirm with support is, if you pull the managed mobile device from LionGuard and it's also been pushed to IT Glue or ConnectWise or whatever, are we going to duplicate it? And I don't think that we do. I think we do some serial number matching there, but I need to confirm that.
and you can shut off those integrations too. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing. I'm just shutting off some of those integrations, and we're going to be using Hoodoo.
Well, we talked a lot in the early days, or we've talked multiple times about data maps, and I think that is something that you guys should all, if you haven't worked on your data map recently. I was on a call a week or so ago where somebody brought up Avix, so they're called out personally here. Don't take it personal. We were literally talking about them, but we talk about the data diagram and exactly what it ought to look like. And somewhere you've got to decide what your source of truth is and what the route is for every bit of data there. And Brian, to your point, if you got LionGuard plugged in here, you risk some data duplication there. Right. Just because LionGuard's there, though, doesn't mean it needs to push data into everything. Just make sure it pushes it somewhere that it's usable and that we can pick it up.
Yeah, it's more an asset management. You know what I mean? Like right now, that's a gap we have. We don't have mobile devices in Lifecycle. So I'm trying to figure out how we can get those added in the asset management.
I feel like it should be able to pull them into Manage.
Well, we're Autotask and Data RMM.
Okay, I should be able to pull them into Autotask, I would think.
But we use Intune to manage mobile devices.
Yep, I think LionGuard should be able to see them and push them to Autotask. Is that right, Mark? Am I making that up?
I think so. I haven't
Okay.
done that yet.
So that's the route I should try to take then.
That's where I would start.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I got you.
And if not, reach out to me or reach out to support and we'll talk about what the implications are, bringing them over the other way. But I would
Okay.
really try and go straight through your Autodesk integration for
That's
everything.
fair. Yeah.
It just keeps
okay.
it simpler, and it means that your engineers can see the same data that your account managers can.
Yeah.
More than us trying to shirk responsibility for it. To me, it's about like, there's got to be a source of truth where everything lives. If you write it directly from LineGuard to us, it'll never make it back to Autodesk where your engineers need to see it.
I hear you. I hear you.
Cool. Anybody else? All right. Well, now we're back to Merry Christmases.
Thanks, Alex.
Take care, everybody. Have a good one.